Welcome students in the class of the macroeconomics. It is the chapter number 4 and it is the eighth frame of the chapter number 4. In this eighth frame we will see the precautions and various type of main aspects which we need to be careful while attending the numericals and attending the methods of the national income. As we know that we have the three methods. Number one, that is the product method. Product method is also known as the value added method. That is also known as the output method. So various precautions and some important aspects are there. We need to be careful by when dealing with the product method. Second is income method. So in the income method also there are so many precautions, and same in the expenditure method also there are many precautions. So in this frame number 8 of the chapter number 4 we will discuss the various and different precautions we need to be careful while dealing with the numericals and while making our flowchart or diagram of the method. There may be some of the precautions which may be very much common in all the three type of methods. Some common precautions are like that we consider only the market value of the final goods and services. Final means the goods which are ready, okay, they are the finished goods or final goods. It means they have crossed their production boundary and they are not for resale, okay, they are ready for the sale to the end user. They are called the final goods. Then we do not consider the value of intermediate consumption or intermediate cost, or in other words we do not consider or do not take the value of goods like used like raw material, components, inputs, parts, fuel, energy. They all are the part of the intermediate cost or intermediate consumption, so we do not use these. Third important aspect, that is the depreciation. When we will do the expenditure method, then there is, I will just uh, make you clear also that depreciation is the part of investment expenditure only. In the expenditure method, we do the four types of expenditures: private final consumption expenditure, capital C; investment expenditure, capital I, which is also known as the gross domestic capital product or gross domestic capital formation, GDCF. So the depreciation is the part of capital I or GDCF. It means depreciation is neither the part of the capital C, neither the part of the government final consumption expenditure, and nor the part of the exports, which is known as X minus M or XN. So these are some common things which we need to be careful when we attempt the numericals. And one more important aspect, that NFIA, net factor income from abroad, is totally different from the net exports. When we talk about the NFIA, net factor income from abroad, it is the difference of the factor income from abroad and factor income to abroad, means rest of the world. The net export is also related to the rest of the world, but here we are talking about the international trade of goods and services. Net export is the difference of the value of goods and services exported and value of goods and services imported. So these are some of the aspects which we need to be very much careful, because after uh, this we will come to the numericals, and we need to also see that how we need GDP. In the value added method we get GDP by adding the gross value addition of all three sectors: primary sector, secondary sector, and tertiary sector. Means in the value added method or product method, we get the GDP by adding the GVAMP of primary sector plus GVAMP of secondary sector plus GVAMP of tertiary sector. So here we need to be very much careful regarding the change in inventory and change in stock in the this gross value addition method. Here in the expenditure method, we get the GDP. Always keep this thing in your mind that in the product method, number one method, and in the expenditure method, number three method, we need to get GDP, and from GDP we will proceed for the national income, that is our NNPFC. So in the expenditure method, we get the GDP by adding the four main types of expenditures. What are these? That is private final consumption expenditure, capital C, plus investment expenditure, capital I, which is also known as gross domestic capital formation, plus government final consumption expenditure, capital G, plus net export, that is XN or X minus M. So in the expenditure method, we get the GDP by adding the four types of expenditures. And here in the value added method, we get the GDP by adding the gross value addition of all three sectors: primary sector, secondary sector, and tertiary sector. So first, we will discuss the main precautions that are taken care of in the product method or value added method. Here, as you are able to see, that the first is value added method, the precautions. It is chapter 4, frame number 3rd. The main precautions for national income extension. First method is our value added method, which is also known as the product method or output method. Value of second hand goods produced in previous years, that will be not considered. This red cross indicates that they will be not included or not considered, and green right sign, it indicates that it will be included or it will be considered. So the sale and purchase of the second hand goods produced in past or previous year, they will be not considered. Why? Because their value has been already considered in the year. Their value has been already included in the GDP or national income when in the year in which they were produced. So to avoid the problem of double counting, this value of second hand goods and will be not considered or not included. So I have put the red cross here. But it is something we can say important to note that commission earned by the agent or broker on account of sale or resale of second hand goods, that will be considered. Why? Because he is providing his services in this process, in this transaction. Then the value of intermediate goods, the value of intermediate goods already reflect in the value of final goods. So if we consider the value of intermediate good, then it will be again the problem of double counting. So these two cases are important examples of the double counting. Number one, second hand goods and the value of intermediate good. So to avoid the problem of double counting, we will not consider the value of intermediate good, as the value of intermediate good is already reflected in the value of final good. It means we will consider the value of only final goods, not the intermediate. Then value of goods produced for self-consumption. Example, food grain produced by the farmer for the consumption by their families. The estimated or imputed value will be considered. It is very important to note that the farmer take the market, that part of their output which is remaining after keeping for their own use or self-consumption. That is known as the market surplus. But this part of their total production which has not gone to the market, it means it has not been sold. And when it is not sold, it has no market price. But it is the part of the output produced in that year. So an approximate value, an estimated value, or that is known as the, in economic term, imputed value will be considered. So that is very important thing. The goods produced for self-consumption, for example, farmer keep a part of his output of the food grain for his family's consumption in the year, that will be considered, that will be included in the national income. But services for self-consumption, for example, services of housewife, maintaining garden in home, all these things, they will be not considered in the national income. Now, it is again very interesting and means something contradictory also we can say that goods for the self-consumption, their value will be considered, but the services for the self-consumption, their value will be not considered. So especially we talk about our mothers, sisters, daughters, they work hard. Before we get up, they also get up before us. They start their household works, but for that there is no monetary gains for them. So services for self-consumption as a housewife, housemaker, they are, their work is not considered. Their services is not considered, and many women associations, they have just uh, started to request that their work and their services should also be considered, and there should be some monetary gains, estimated gains, whatever it is. But these services for the self consumptions, they are not included. So these two things are, you need to be very careful. Production of fixed assets for oneself, like residential building by the household, factories by the entrepreneurs, their value will be considered, whatever amount they are getting. So estimated or imputed rent of owner occupied house, that will be considered in the national income. Value of such housing services is estimated from the market prevailing rates of the same time. Suppose a person who is living with his family in his own house, so the estimated or imputed rent of that house will be considered, and that estimated or imputed rent will be calculated approximately as the market rate prevailing in that area or in that location of the same type of house. So this will be considered in the national income. This will be included in the national income. Change in inventory or change in stock, that is net increase in the inventory, that will be considered final goods, like that. It is a note that the value of only final goods and services produced in the same year will be included to avoid the double counting. Generally, we get the question on the double counting. So here it is written that the double counting we need to be included. To avoid the double counting, only the value of final goods will be included. So it is all about the value added method or product method. Now we will take the examples or precautions, and they are not all the precautions, there are some main precautions, there may be some more precautions also. So these are the main precautions only which I am highlighting here on the whiteboard. Now it is the income method, which is also known as the distribution share method. So various type of incomes are there, as we know. In the income method, we generally get first the NDPFC, net domestic product at factor cost. And from this net domestic factor cost, we move towards the national income and NPFC. And the main components of NDPFC, they are COE, compensation of employees, operating surplus, and mixed income of self-employed. So here we will see in this, the employees' contribution in the social security schemes will not be considered. Means the employees' share, like employee spend money or do the expenditure on the various type of insurance, group insurance, accidental policies, and his share in the fund, provident fund, that will not be considered. Only the employer's contribution will be considered in the national income, or employer's contribution will be included in the national income. It is very important point to note, because in the numerical, if you have been given the employee's contribution is 25 lakhs rupees and employer's contribution is 30 lakh rupees, then we will include only the employer's contribution, that is 30 lakh rupees. We will not consider, or we will not include the employee's contribution. Okay, so only employer's contribution is in the social security schemes that will be added. So here's the green tick, green right side. Transfer payments like old age pension, scholarships, unemployment allowances, etc., they are not included. So I have put here the cross. The reason being, by the transfer payments, these people, they have not involved in any type of generation of or production of goods and services. They are getting the transfer payments, but this is the income received but not earned, and the income earned, that will be considered in the national income. So transfer payments, these are, and remittances also, these are the income received but not earned, so they will not be included in the national income. Then illegal income or income from illegitimate activities, for example, income from smuggling, gambling, theft, etc., they are also not part of the national income. So if they have been given, we will not include them in the national income. Some windfall gains like income from lottery or lucky draw, they will be also not included, because they have not uh, earned by contributing their factor services in the production of goods and services. It is just depends upon the fortune or luck. So they have got this lottery or lucky draw. So this type of income will also not considered or included in the national income. Same with the income received as donation, gift, charity, missionary aids, they will also not included. It has been seen in the many of the countries, they send donations on the name of various, we can say, things like religion, like the welfare of their particular people, a particular group. So these type of charities or donations, they will also not included in the national income. They are not the part of the national income. Income from sale of shares and bonds and debentures, this is also not included. Why? The reason is that it is the mere the transfer of ownership, or mere the transfer of the title or name. So this is not involved in any type of production activity or in the flow of generation of the goods and services. So this will not be considered in the national income. But the income from commission of selling financial assets like shares, bonds, and debentures, and fixed assets like old buildings, lands, old car, scooter, etc., their commission, if anybody is earning, any agent or broker who is earning this type of commission, then his such income will be considered in the national income, because he is providing his factor services as an agent or as an mediator. Okay, so this type of commission, that will be included, but The income from selling the shares, bonds, and debentures, that will not be included in the national income. Then compulsory transfer payments like wealth tax, death duties, gift tax, they will also not included. The income from imputed rent of owner occupied house, that will be included. It is considered as factor income. If you are living in your house, and if you are not living in your house, and if you have given it to someone else on the rent, you will earn income. So same type of income, that will be that same type of income in the form of rent, that will be included in the national income. Then free services of owner. Some of the owners are there who work as the manager, who work as an engineer in the own factory or own enterprises. Their imputed or estimated value of such free services will be included. Okay, because if they are not working there, they must have worked somewhere else, then they will must be earning from there. So their imputed or estimated means approximate value of their services will be included in the national income. So this is the third main part, second main part. Now we come to the expenditure method, and what are the main precautions in the expenditure method, we will see in this part. In the expenditure method, expenditure on intermediate goods, that will be not included, because we know the intermediate goods value already reflects in the final goods. So the expenditure on this, that will be not included in the national income. Expenditure on second hand goods, that will be not included, otherwise there will be the problem of double counting. These two things, they both are responsible for the double counting. The expenditure of financial assets like shares, bonds, and dividends, they will be not counted, because it is considered as a transfer of ownership or transfer of title only. The government expenditure on all transfer payments like pension, scholarships, they are not included, because they are not given for the factor services, they are not factor payments. Okay, so these will be not counted in the national income. And it is an important note here, it is not given any cross or any right, but it is very important note while dealing with the expenditure method, that we have four types of expenditures I have discussed with you. That is our private final consumption expenditure, capital C. Then investment expenditure, that is also known as the gross domestic capital formation. Then government final consumption expenditure, that is denoted by capital G. Then net export, that is denoted by X minus M or XN. So we need to keep, or we need to be careful regarding this, that depreciation exists in the second type of expenditure, that is investment expenditure or gross domestic capital formation. So that for that I have already told you. So here in the four types of main final expenditures, number one C, number two I, number three G, number four XN or X minus M. So in the four types of main final expenditures, the depreciation is a part of investment expenditure capital I, which is also known as the gross domestic capital formation, because in this type of formation, in this type of expenditure, we have the business firms and other production units, they invest and they make the expenditure on the plant, machinery, instruments, and tools. And when the production process is there, the depreciation is there in these plant, machineries, tools, and other fixed capital assets which are being used in the production process. So in this I, the depreciation exists. Okay. Then next one is expenditure or improvement of the fixed assets. To for the maintenance purpose or to give strength, we generally uh, paint and do the distemper to our houses, buildings, factories. So expenditure on improvement or maintenance of the fixed assets, that will be counted, that will be included in the national income. Expenditure next, expenditure by the government on the social welfare or quality of citizens like health, education, and sanitation, etc., that will be counted in the national income, because by this they are increasing their skills and productivity, and they will be more productive in the production of goods and services if they are healthy, if they are educated, if they are highly skilled, and if they are properly fit. So the expenditure by the government on social welfare or quality life of citizens like health, education, sanitation, etc., that will be included in the our national income. Next is expenditure by household on durable goods, non-durable goods, rail fare, on tourism, availing various type of services, that will be included because it is the part of the private final consumption expenditure, that is capital C. And we generally consider that the main uh, part or main share in the capital C, that is private final consumption expenditure, the main part comes from the individuals and households. Then one other example, the government expenditure on defense, that is will be also considered in the expenditure by the government like defense, law and order, court, police, etc. So this will be considered in the capital G. They are the part of the government final consumption expenditure, like expenditure on defense, law and order, administration. All these are part of the capital G, so it will be considered. Then expenditure on purchase of fertilizers, urea, seeds by a farmer, it is a part of intermediate cost or intermediate consumption. So if a farmer purchases seeds, fertilizers, urea, and other goods which are being used in the production process of the food grain, but they will be called or considered as the part of intermediate goods. So the intermediate cost or intermediate consumption, that will not be considered. Expenditure in our country by a foreign tourist, it's a part of export, that will be considered. So it is the green right sign. It means it will be included in the national income, and it is the part of the net export. Many tourists come to India and they are foreigners. They are from the rest of the world. When they purchase our domestic goods or consume our domestic goods, it means we are getting the foreign exchange, and our domestic goods are being purchased by the foreigners. So the foreign tourist, when they visit India, the spending done by them is considered in the national income because it is a part of the value of exports. So this is the expenditure methods precautions we have seen in this frame. This way we are able to consider and discuss all main type of precautions which needed to be careful while dealing with the various or main three types of the methods of measuring, estimating, or calculating the national income. So we have started with the value added method, which is also known as the product method, or which is also called output method. The precautions for that we have seen. We have seen the precautions for the income method also, which is also known as the distributor share distribution share method. And lastly, we have seen the precautions which needed to be kept in the expenditure method. So this way we have seen all three methods precautions in this frame.